Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Hopefully, everybody. Today is Friday. Today is, of course, Friday, December the 13th. Of course, as far as I know, nothing bad. Hopefully, everybody's having a good day. Hopefully, we don't have too many people superstitious, as it were. As I just realized what today actually is. But I've had a pretty good day, so everything's fine. It would seem. Um, First off, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if you haven't already, we can see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With all that being said, of course. We're just going to give people a chance to come in. Before we get started, I'll probably talk about what's on tap for the night in Potato. About another minute or so. So let's see. He is such a boy, a very special boy. Gigantor, 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 great big robot is in your hands, bigger than big, stronger than strong, mighty, tougher than tough, stronger than strong. Fight for right, he is strong, Gigantor, Gigantor, Gigantor. Kimba, 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 Kimba. Who's Who's there down deep as darkest Africa, Africa? Who down in Africa, Africa? Go speed racer, go speed racer, go speed racer, go. All right. So, anyways, as we of course get ready to. Let's see. Okay, so we're at 3:24 now. So I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So, tonight, of course, um, we got three articles we're going to go over. Two of them Bleeding Fool and one from that park place. Um, First up, Turnabout, comic book killer Leonard Lawson's art to be removed. Um, so there's that article that's going to be done by. It's an Avi article. Now, when I was looking into who this Leonard Lawson was, he was a Australian comic book artist who I think I guess created probably one of Australia's most popular comic book characters back in the 50s and 60s, called named the Lone Avenger. It was a Western type comic, but I guess supposedly, or no, I guess so. I guess during his life, he was actually arrested and convicted twice of raping and murdering women. Um, and apparently his art can be removed. And then also there's a first look at Henry Cavill's Voltron movie behind the scenes of live action adaptation of Voltron, classic cartoon we all grew up with. And then also I'll be looking at a story from that park place where they're talking about how I guess Sesame Street's getting canceled. I guess they moved from PBS to Netflix, I guess. Warner Brothers Discovery has decided to I guess cancel them or what have you. But we'll learn more about that. Also, of course, we got quite a bit of wrestling news to go through. As of course tonight, as tonight you have TNA's Final Resolution. We'll look ahead to that. We'll look ahead to tonight's SmackDown. Tomorrow night, of course, WWE will have WWE's Saturday Night Main Event. And then Collision. So we'll talk about a lot of that. Actually, I do need to step away from the camera for a moment. I'll be right back. But what I will do is I'll put some music on to entertain you guys while I'm on camera. I'll be right back, and we will be when I come back. We'll get started on the article. All right, sorry about that. Some stuff came up there that I had to take care of. So, but anyways, um, let's get back to um, let me get back to this a bit here. Let me see now. Eh, All right. So with that, so I said we'd get back to we'd get to the so we'd get started on the show here. That's what we're going to do now. Um, so let me go ahead and pull it up. All right, we'll get to the first article we're going to look at here. And just a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this then. Get into the first article here. All right, so here we go. Turnabout. Comic book killer Leonard Lawson's art to be removed. Article by Avi Green, published December 13th, 2024. Now, when I saw this, I was like wondering, well, why is his art being removed? Because I prior to looking into this article and stuff like that, I had never heard of this guy before. But I guess according to the Daily Telegraph, which I guess is a Australian paper, sex killer out of jail to paint Golden Girl. Okay, so let's see here. So Australian Broadcasting reports on a controversy that's come up involving the late convicted rapist murderer Leonard Lawson, a former comics artist in the 1950s, previously spoken about here, who had drawn artwork on the walls of a former prison being converted into a health center, and whose current staff are now removing, and here's why. All right. The artwork of a killer and rapist is set to be covered over after being deemed too quote unquote triggering for health staff to see. Dubbed quote unquote the comic book killer, Leonard Lawson spent almost 50 years behind bars, including his final years of life at the Grafton Gaol. Now, for those of you who don't know, Gaol is kind of an older English term for the word jail. So that's the I actually learned about that particular word watching Dark Shadows. So, anyways, where he painted large murals on the old jail walls. The jail was closed in 2020, and the site is being repurposed by the local Aboriginal Land Council and the New South Wales Health, with plans for old jail buildings to become an administrative hub, while the Grafton Hospital is being redeveloped nearby. North South NSW or North South Wales, or yeah, New South Wales Health Infrastructure said in a statement it would cover up the artwork as part of the site repurposing. Well, I guess in some ways it makes sense. I mean, even if it wasn't due in part to the fact, you would think that having it up there was probably, if they're repurposing the building from a jail to, I'm sure it's probably just bigger news because this guy was a comics artist who actually from what I've looked into, his comic actually ended up having a pretty decent run there in the 50s and 60s. All right, so The murals are painted on brickwork and cannot be dismantled or relocated due to the structural integrity of the wall. In other words, what they're saying is that they basically can't they can't remove it um, because it's on the actual bricks, and therefore um, they'd actually have to take the whole wall down and then rebuild it somewhere else. Um, so that's probably, and that'd be too much of a hassle, I'd say. The wall featuring the artwork will be retained, and approval was granted under Section 60 of the Heritage Act to cover the artwork with internal wall lining. So they can't paint. So I guess they can't be painted over. I guess, but they're just going to cover it up. But the Clarence River Historical Society said it was against the move, and the artwork should be preserved as a valuable part of history. In 1954, Lawson took 5 models to an isolated location, raped 2, and sexually assaulted 3 others at gunpoint, and was condemned to death. However, Lawson's good behavior saw him released from after serving. Okay, so there's a piece missing there that I read about when I looked this guy up. So he was condemned to death, and then so how do you go from? And this is kind of the thing the article should have explained, but I guess because it was in Australia, they probably already knew the situation. But I guess at the point when he was condemned to death, back in 1954, there he they did have the death penalty, but by the end of that year, that same year, they actually got rid of the death penalty, and his sentence was more or less commuted to, like, I think 14 years in prison. So a little bit of tidbit there on that. Let's see. However, Lawson's good behavior saw him released after serving 7 years. So 7 years of the 14 that he was commuted to, so about half the time. So 7 years, that would have basically he would have been released in 1961 then. In 1962, about a year after he was released, he raped and murdered 16-year-old Jane Bower before taking a hall of students hostage at the Sydney Church of England Girls' Grammar School, where he shot and killed 15-year-old Wendy Sue Luscombe. Lawson was then sentenced to life in prison. Being in jail didn't stop Lawson, and in 1972 at Parramatta Gaol, he attacked visiting dancer Sharon Hamilton with a knife. 6 years later, Hamilton died by suicide. So at the time, they had a group of dancers coming to entertain the inmates, and I guess he grabbed one of them and basically attacked her. So prior to his criminal activity, Lawson, who was originally from Wagga Wagga, was renowned for creating some of Australia's most famous comics, including the Action Comics character, the Lone Avenger, and the Hooded Rider. Not to be confused with DC Comics Action Comics, mind you. This was another Action Comics altogether that they had. And I think the beginning of this article even had oh wait, no, it was actually in the thumbnail, I guess, more about it. Now, this is obviously that was from the article. That's from the Australian Broadcasting article. So, see, and then this is Avi speaking. See, when a criminal's behavior is that obscenely repulsive, it can't really be argued that the art should be retained as part of the building itself if it sickens anybody with common sense who knows what he did to those poor women. The monster destroyed his reputation and career through the obscene acts he committed against women decades before, and it's head shaking how the judicial system at the time could spare Lawson the death penalty and even release him. Well, again, it wasn't the judicial. It wasn't necessarily the judicial system. It was more the legal, the political system there. They basically they repealed the death penalty. So they had the death penalty, and then they decided to repeal it. And because they repealed it, they had to ultimately, they couldn't like grandfather it in and say, okay, you're still condemned, even though we passed a law that says that we're no longer going to have the death penalty. You're still going to die. You can't, I don't think that's something you can do. They passed a law, and of course, the the judicial branch, the judicial system in any country is just there to interpret the laws, they're not there to make the laws. They're not there to per se enforce the laws. They're just there to interpret the laws. And if their legislature at the time decided that they were not going to kill their criminals, especially the ones who committed such as Avi put it here, obscenely repulsive, obscenely repulsive criminal acts, then they have to change course, as it were. They had to commute his sentence because the death penalty was no longer legal in Australia. Now, I don't know if they've ever changed it back or not, but that's what or New South Wales or whatever. Let's see. And since, of course, his sentence was commuted to 14 years, now with good behavior, he basically good behavior. He got out after 7, and then after it didn't take him long. It took him about a year or so, I guess, before he committed another act that got him sent to prison for the rest of his life. And even as they said, prison didn't even stop him then. They had to now granted, I know some people might have an issue with what I'm about to say, but like the idea, let's say, having like female guards in a men's prison for guys like this very reason may be what because that's why you don't necessarily want to always have female. Granted, people are going to say, "Oh, that's sex." No, it's not sex. It's practical. A guy like this, he gets a chance. Now, granted, in this case, it wasn't a guard he attacked. He attacked somebody who was visiting the prison, who was actually there to entertain the inmates. She probably wasn't expecting to have any kind of involvement beyond that. Hey, Natsumi. Hi, I see you there. Yeah, I'm talking about situation that happened, I guess, in Australia, where they're, I guess, covering up some artwork on a former prison wall that was done by somebody who had actually helped create a pretty popular Australian comic character. But anyways, getting back to the article, as always, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's continue on here. Oh yeah, what I was saying though, again, guys like this are probably the reason why it's not necessarily a good idea to have, female prison guards in a men's prison. Okay, because then their lives are pretty much put into danger. So, anyways, continuing on with the article. Not to mention how they allowed any convicts near the dancer who came to the prison. Well, that's a good point, too. Such absolute incompetence, and it cost some innocent and defenseless women very heavily. Now, this might be the guy they're talking about here. The article says the staff will record the artworks, and if it's really that important and that's decidedly all that's needed, there's no need to make a big deal out of removing paintings by somebody that heinous from the location it was first at. Again, going back to the idea here, the artwork is from a guy who helped create some of two of the you know imagine if that happened here in the States. Imagine if, let's say, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created Superman, or Bill Finger and Bob Kane, who created Batman. Well, what do you think would have happened if any of those four men had been, not even convicted, but just merely accused of what this guy did? Especially in today's world, there'd be hell to pay. There'd be sure hell to pay if that happened. Action Comic, King of them all, number 12. So this is a sample of his artwork here. This is Lone Avenger. So this is the guy's artwork right here from the comic that he did. The monster is a stain on the medium, and it's to be hoped there won't be any more demonic vermin like him coming down the pike, who could humiliate comicdom more than need be with the horrifying behavior Lawson was guilty of decades before. And I'm sure that, granted, even though Avi didn't say anything about this in his article, knowing, I think, how he kind of feels also about the situation revolving Neil Gaiman as well, I think there might be some similarities there, because I know that Bleeding Fool also did a series of reevaluating Neil Gaiman's work amidst the accusations he had. So I know that even though he didn't mention that in this article, my guess is somewhere in the back of Avi's mind, he's probably thinking about the possible similarities between this Leonard Lawson and Neil Gaiman. So just some additional thoughts to consider there. So now we'll move on to the next article here. We'll go over one that's probably a little bit more positive. Next news article here. First look at Henry Calvin's Voltron movie behind the scenes. Article by John Pallister, published earlier today. So, the highly anticipated live-action adaptation of Voltron has officially begun filming, with Henry Cavill leading an all-star cast in the Amazon MGM Studios production. For those of you who may not remember, Voltron was, of course, it was a cartoon that many of us who grew up in the 1980s got a chance to watch. It was actually an English adaptation. It kind of merged together two animes at the time of Beast Go Lion and Dairugger 15. So they kind of merged those two animes together to create Voltron. So producer Bob Koplar confirmed the start of production, stating, quote, cameras are rolling, unquote. The project, which has been in development since 2005, wow, so 19 years. 19 years. You're developing something for like 19 years. Wow. What in the world? Why did it take so long to develop that? No one have to wonder. It's now underway on Australia's Gold Coast, under the direction of Rawson Marshall Thurber. So we got another story coming out of Australia here. In parentheses, in quotes, red notice. But 19 years to develop just to get to the point where you can actually start doing work on something. That's something else. Anyways. All right. As soon as I can find it. The cursor, of course. All right. A newly revealed behind-the-scenes image offers fans a first look at the official logo, blending nostalgia with modern design elements. The iconic blazing sword still forms the T, quote unquote, with subtle changes to the V and R letters. Hmm. Let's see. The camera is expected to follow the animated series premise, featuring five teenagers transported to an intergalactic war. They must learn to control giant robotic lions that unite to form the legendary Voltron. A term used for that kind of robot is a Gestalt, I believe, or Gestalt. Joining Cavill in the cast are Daniel Quinn Toy, Sterling K. Brown, Rita Ora, Alba Baptista, Samson Kao, John Kim, uh, Tharanya Theron, Laura Gordon, and Tim Griffin. Thurber promises a fresh take on while honoring the franchise roots. Quote, we're going to stay true to the iconic elements that you love, unquote, he said during a recent convention appearance. The production is set to inject over $100 million into Queensland's economy, according to John Paul Langbroek, Minister of the Arts. So, yeah, this is happening in Australia, or at least they're filming it in Australia. For Cavill, Voltron, quote unquote, marks another major franchise following his departures from Superman and The Witcher, quote unquote. The actor is also stated to star in a quote unquote Highlander reboot and Amazon's quote Warhammer 40K unquote adaptation. Quote unquote Voltron is currently filming with a release date yet to be announced. Yeah. The amazing thing I find is that it took 19 years just to get started on the project. 19 years. That's to me that's funny. That's pretty funny there. So anyways, All right. So anyways, as we get ready to and we of course get ready to so let's now get ready to move on to the next article. The last article we'll do tonight, and then of course we'll move on to the wrestling wrap up, and then got this day in each history. Then we'll wrap up. So let's see now. All right. So here's the story right here. All right. So here's a story coming um, from that Park Place. Warner Brothers cancels Sesame Street. Studio kicked Big Bird and Elmo to the curb. Article by M. Montero, published earlier today. So, kind of funny because we did actually talk a little bit about this the other day. The passing of probably the longest running person to play Big Bird, I guess, voice Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch, Carol Finney, the other day. So let's see what's going on here. So Big Bird, Elmo, and Oscar the Grouch will soon be searching for a new home as Warner Brothers has decided new episodes of the long-running children's show Sesame Street will no longer air on HBO or Max streaming service. When Sesame Street transitioned from PBS to streaming on Max, many believe the show, which debuted in 1969, had found its permanent home. However, Warner Brothers Discovery's shift in streaming strategy has left the cast and crew, both human and Muppet, seeking a new broadcasting partner. Quote, "It has been a wonderful creative experience working with everyone at Sesame Street on the iconic children's show, and we are thrilled to keep some of the library series on Max in the U.S., unquote, a Max spokesperson told The Hollywood Reporter. Quote, "As we've launched Max though, and based on consumer usage and feedback, we had to prioritize our focus on stories for adults and families, and so new episodes from Sesame Street at this time are not as core to our strategy." Well, here's the thing, though. I thought Sesame Street was kind of a kids' family show. You know, I mean, I guess it's more of a kids' show than a family show. But I don't. Are they saying that they're more focusing on trying to have more shows that are more directed at the entire family, not just a specific age block, or what? Are they trying to be like G-rated? I guess general audiences. Warner Brothers Discovery's decision raises eyebrows considering the popularity of Bluey, an Australian children's show that streams on Disney. Plus, Bluey is the most watched show on streaming, so it's clear that a market exists for exclusive children's content on streaming. Now, if I understand correctly, Bluey is, I think, a sequel to Blue's Clues. I think, if I understand correctly, but I could be wrong there. However, Warner Brothers Discovery, burdened with $40 billion in debt, appears focused on trimming its platform ahead of high-budget projects like its upcoming Harry Potter reboot series. So they're basically here. Okay, so that's so yeah. Okay, it's not. I guess it's not a a sequel. I guess that doesn't look like Blue's Clues at all. So Max will continue streaming older Sesame Street seasons through 2027. However, the platform recently removed hundreds of older episodes to cut cost. This cancellation allows Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit organization behind the show, to find a new distribution partner. It's unclear whether the existing deal to stream older episodes on Max will affect Sesame Street's ability to leverage its extensive library, which spans more than 5 decades. Quote, we are excited to extend our 10-year partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, keeping Sesame Street's iconic library available on Max. Through 2027, a Sesame Workshop spokesperson said, quote, we will continue to invest in our best-in-class programming and look forward to announcing new distribution plans in the coming months, ensuring that Sesame Street reaches as many children as possible for generations to come, unquote. Sesame Workshop will make significant changes to the show in its upcoming 56th season. The long-running kids program will get a new look as the workshop drops the quote-unquote magazine-style format viewers have grown accustomed to over the years. Instead, Sesame Street will lean into longer narrative-led segments. These narratives will pair with a new animated series called Tales from 123. This represents the biggest change to the show since its runtime shifted from an hour to 30 minutes in 2016. So now it sounds like they're going more towards dramatic programming as opposed to like. So I guess no wonder it let PBS it started becoming a different program altogether. It sounds like, quote, it's going to give us an opportunity to dive further into the narrative, unquote. Kay Wilson Stallings, executive VP and chief creative. I think it's supposed to be creative, so there's a typo there, not creative. I think creative development and production officer for Sesame Workshop said. She also called these changes a quote unquote re-imaging of the show. Considering how kind of left-leaning Sesame Street might be, I wonder if this is going if even despite the fact that President Trump just got reelected, despite America, despite much of America has basically said they do not like this stuff being pushed on their kids. I wonder if these people are just going to double down on, pushing things like identity politics and LGBTQ plus themes on the kids. If that's the case, people are, I'm not sure people are still even allowing, there probably are a segment who are still allowing the more liberal parents are still allowing their kids to watch this stuff. But outside of that, I don't see, I don't see a lot of right leaning or conservative parents letting their kids watch something like this. Wilson Stalling believes that adding longer narrative segments allows for more dramatic, quote unquote, dynamic and quote unquote sophisticated stories in the show about singing monsters that teach you how to count. The Children's Television Workshop created Sesame Street in 1969 in collaboration with Jim Henson. The show, ahead of its time, featured a vibrant urban setting with a diverse cast of children and adults interacted with Henson's beloved Muppet characters. These included Big Bird, Oscar the Grouch, the Count, Elmo, Grover, Cookie Monster, Bert and Ernie, and more. Kermit the Frog, Henson's most famous character, also appeared in the show's early years. Before Kermit got his own cast and crew together. Do you think Sesame Street will find a new home? How do you feel about Warner Brothers effectively canceling Sesame Street? Will it return to network television or land on another streaming service? Share your thoughts in the comments. It does raise some questions as to whether or not it will, you know, because at least when it was on PBS, they didn't necessarily have to worry too much about when it was on public broadcasting system. They didn't have to necessarily worry about things like funding and advertising because, in essence, the government was paying for it. But I guess in 2016, I guess that was when, of course, Trump was first elected. He probably was going to cut a lot of the public access and public broadcasting budget, and therefore PBS decided to get rid of it and then it found its home on Warner Brothers. But as people have kind of soured on woke ideology in the last 2 or 3 years here, they may find that current Sesame Street is not as appealing as they wish it was to the general populace. All right, so with that, all for that now. So now, we're going to move on to the wrestling wrap up, as we do have quite a few things going on this weekend. So tonight, first go ahead and talk a little bit about what's going down, of course, tonight. Or I'm sorry. Let's first off go back to last night. Go back to last night's Impact, as it was the go home Impact before tonight's Final Resolution pay per view. Then we'll talk a little bit about what you can expect on tonight's Final Resolution. So Moose defended the TNA X Division title against Cody Deaner and beat him in just over 3 minutes. Rosemary defeated Zaya Brookside on last night's Impact. The Rascals defeated Laredo Kid and Leon Slater. Digital Media and International Champion PCO and Sami Callihan defeated Hammerstone and Jake Sullivan via disqualification. Danny Luna defeated Heather by elegance in a singles match. Then in the main event, Joe Hendry, Masha Slamovich, and Nick Nemeth defeated First Class and Tasha Steelz. So that happened all on last night's all happened on last night's episode of Impact. So now let's move ahead to tonight's to look ahead to tonight's so first off, on the countdown, which was on the countdown, which was on countdown to Final Resolution, which was on YouTube earlier, saw JDC taking on Leon Slater in a one-on-one match, and Frankie Kazarian taking on Jonathan Gresham. They now tonight's Final Resolution, of course, will be taking place from Center Stage in Atlanta, Georgia, a long-time TV studio type environment. It was a place where they taped many of the older WCW and Georgia Championship Wrestling shows of the past. But that all happened on earlier tonight on I guess since that's already happened, we can at least talk about the results there. Happened on there. Actually, no. I'll wait till Monday. Give all the results of the shows, like we normally do. Now on tonight's resolution, which will be on TNA Plus, Center Stage in Atlanta. Moose defends the X Division title against Kushida, who had won the right to challenge him for an at Final Resolution in a recent 4-way match. Let's see. In a three-way tag match, PCO and Sami Callihan will be taking on Jake something, and they'll be taking on and the Rascals. Now it just says Jake something here. I don't know what happened to his partner Hammerstone, but apparently he's not going to be. Trent Seven takes on Ace Austin in a singles match. Rosemary takes on Jordan Grace, singles match. In a number one contendership 4-way match for the TNA World Title, former champs Josh Alexander, Steve Macklin. Former champ Josh Alexander, Joe Hendry, former TNA World Champion Steve Macklin, and Mike Santana will all be taking on each other to see who will be the next in line to take on the winner of tonight's main event match, which we'll talk about in a moment. Masha Slamovich defends the TNA Knockout World title against former TNA Knockout World Champion Tasha Steelz in a Falls Count Anywheres match. In a tables match, the Hardys will be defending the TNA World Tag Team Championship against the Systems, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers, with Alicia Edwards in their corner. In the main event, we'll see for the TNA World title, Nick Nemeth defends the TNA World title against AJ Francis. So that's all going on tonight. That's going on Final Resolution on the pay-per-view tonight. Now going also happening tonight, of course, is SmackDown on tonight's SmackDown. Let's see about what to get on. Now tonight will of course will be the go home edition of SmackDown before tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. The tonight's Friday night SmackDown will be held at the XL Center in Hartford, Connecticut. So you have at least the two semifinal matches for the Women's United States title going on tonight. And then the winners of these matches, I believe, will be facing off against each other in the finals at tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. So Bayley will be taking on Chelsea Green, and Meechin will be taking on Tiffany Stratton. So that is what's going down tonight on SmackDown, the go home SmackDown before tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. And speaking of tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event, first off, we know that Jesse Ventura has been tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event will be held at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. Jesse Ventura has already been brought in to do commentary for the show. It's also said that Jimmy Hart will be there's already said to be a number of former WWF stars, who are already said to be there, including Ted DiBiase, Greg Valentine, Tito Santana. There's even some talk that Hulk Hogan may go there. I think one of the few complaints has been about that, though, made by Medusa Miceli, formerly known in the WWF as Alundra Blaze, commented that none of the, basically some of the women are not going to be represented there from that time period. Neither Wendy Richter nor Rockin' Robin, who were, obviously Moolah is passed on, but Moolah probably would not have been invited anyways due to what was more recently found out in years. But for tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event, Sami Zayn is set to take on Drew McIntyre. The finals of the WWE Women's United States titles, I previously mentioned, will be the winners of the two semifinal matches that are happening tonight on SmackDown between Bayley and Chelsea Green and Michin and Tiffany Stratton. Liv Morgan defends the WWE Women's World title against Io Sky. Gunther defends the WWE World Heavyweight title in a triple threat match against Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And in a match for the WWE and WWE Universal titles, Cody Rhodes will be taking on Kevin Owens. Now looking to AEW news. Looking to some AEW news here, as of course tonight Rampage's winners they're part of the Winter is Coming trilogy here of Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. Of course, they'll still be coming from the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, Missouri. Matches tonight include Lance Archer and AEW International Champion Konosuke Takeshita of the Don Callis family taking on the duo of Powerhouse Hobbs and Mark Davis. Deonna Purrazzo takes on indie talent Shazza McKenzie. In her first in-ring action since her return on Wednesday night Dynamite, Toni Storm, back under her original name and gimmick of just Toni Storm, will be taking on Harley Cameron, as these two, of course, have a connection in which they both were at one point Harley Cameron still might be part of Outcast if the Outcast are even a thing anymore. And some news came out. Apparently somebody leaked some so Saraya on one of her sites, I guess some stuff got leaked that she was not happy about because the person basically put out for free what people would have had to pay for. Usually, somebody decided to leak that, and then in preparation for taking on Chris Jericho at Final Battle, Ring of Honor's Final Battle, Matt Cardona will be taking on Brian Keith. I should actually check into that too, because I should check into something there in regard to that. I think this weekend also has Final Battle happening. Final Battle being the Ring of Honor. And normally we don't talk too much about Ring of Honor as kind of, let's see. Let me just see here. Actually, Final Battle takes place next week from the Hammerstein Ballroom next Friday, 1 week from today. So that's what I had to check there. Now, also, tomorrow night's Collision. Take a look at that. Tomorrow night's Collision coming from the Chavez Arena in St. Louis, Missouri. On tomorrow night's Collision, you have a couple of Blue League matches in the Continental Classic, as Kazuchika Okada will be taking on Beast Mordos. Beast Mordos will be looking to get his first points of the tournament by trying to defeat Kazuchika Okada. And then Mark Briscoe be looking to build on his momentum after his win over Daniel Garcia taking on the current points leader in the Blue League, Kyle Fletcher. Among some of the other matches in the on the night will include Willow Nightingale and Jamie Hayter in AEW's version of the qualifying tournament for the Wrestle Destiny International Women's Cup. The winner of that match will advance to, will go on to the show at Wrestle Destiny in Tokyo, Japan, at the beginning of next month. I believe Athena is already qualified for that, for representing Ring of Honor. So Tony Storm will take on Shazza McKenzie in a bit of a battle of ideologies that's been brewing for last couple of months. The Martin brothers, Darius and Dante Martin, Top Flight, with Layla Gray in their corner, will be taking on Action Andretti and Leo Rush in a tag team match. Chris Statlander, after taking some time off after her recent loss to Mercedes Moné, will look to get back on track, answering the challenge of Tootie Lynn. And then a 10-man tag match, the Outrunners of Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum team with Daniel Garcia, Orange Cassidy, and Commander. The last three there are, two of the last three there, Daniel Garcia and Commander, participating in the Continental Classic, with Alex Abramontes in their corner, take on the 5 men of the varsity athletes, Ari Davari, Tony Nese, and Josh Woods, and the M&M collection of Mansoor and Mason Madden. Of course, Mark Sterling will be in their corner for that one. So that's pretty much all I got for you on the wrestling wrap-up. So now, with today being Friday, December the 13th, 2024, let's get ready to take a look back at this day in Neat's history. So, let's see now. 1984, 1999, 1994, and that's 2014, right? Okay. All right. So first, I'm going to head back 40 years ago today. On this date, 40 years ago today, on this date, 40 years ago today, the 275th issue of GI Combat went on sale on this date back in 1984. GI Combat was a war anthology series that started out as part of Quality Comics library until, of course, DC basically bought up Quality there in the late 50s. During the time that picking up a few other characters in there. The book sold for $1.25, was 48 pages. 2 of the main features in there were, of course, the Haunted Tank and Bravos of Vietnam. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the 275th issue of GI Combat went on sale on this date back in 1984. Moving ahead now to 1994, 30 years ago today. On this date, 30 years ago today, Universal Cartoon Studios' The Land Before Time 2, The Great Valley Adventure, a direct-to-video animated adventure musical film, was released by United Cartoon Studios This is, I guess, the first Land Before Time movie that was done without any involvement, support, or input from Don Bluth. It was a sequel to the 1988 film, The Land Before Time. So, but this is so on this date, 30 years ago today, Land Before Time 2, The Great Valley Adventure, the direct-to-video animated adventure musical film, was released by Universal Cartoon Studios. Moving on to the next piece of niche history, we move ahead to 1999, 25 years ago today. On this date, 25 years ago today, on the Go Home Nitro, leading into that year's Starrcade. From the New Orleans Arena in New Orleans, Indiana. The main event saw the Outsiders defeat Bret Hart and Bill Goldberg for the WCW World Tag Team Championships. In a chair match, Roddy Piper defeated Curt Hennig via countout. In a 2-on-1 handicap match, Paul Orndorff defeated the team known as Creative Control, Gerald and Patrick. Basically, the Harris brothers in business suits, basically. In a body bag match, Lash LaRue defeated Big Vito. In a suplex versus powerbomb challenge match, Sid Vicious defeated Steve Williams. In a 3-on-2 handicap match, Asia, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn of Revolution defeated the team of Harlem Heat, Booker T, and Stevie Ray. The Bunkhouse Brawl match, Jeff Jarrett defeated Chris Benoit. We also had another interesting match in which Nitro Girl Spice defeated Medusa in just over a minute. And then in the opening match of the evening, the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea, with Paisley in his corner, defeated the Maestro with Symphony in his corner. So, in just under 2 minutes. So that happened 25 years ago today. They go home Monday Nitro before and finally, 10 years ago today, 2014, Sunrise's Aikatsu the movie premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2014, 10 years ago today. 2014 Japanese animated musical film based on the television series of the same name. Basically an idol type anime. The film focuses on Ichigo and others preparing for Ichigo Hoshiyama Super Live event. So this is an animated, and like where the main characters are like idols and that focus. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here on Sunday with more Sunday, in which Metal will be joining me, as we'll be looking back to comics that went on sale in April 1940 from this case David McKay Publications and Eastern Color. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.